Minneapolis police described it as a mostly peaceful protest, but by the end of the night, nearly 30 people were arrested. They declared an unlawful assembly, 3 hotels were broken into, and the police were chased away from downtown. So this all began around 8 p.m. They called it a noise protest, and the most insidious part of all of this is that the protesters were somehow able to figure out the hotels where they believed ICE agents were staying. The first hotel that was on their target list was the Canopy Hotel by Hilton. So the initial goal was to make as much noise as possible so that ICE agents and CBP agents wouldn't be able to get any sleep, so that way it would be difficult to do their job. Personally, I just imagine how much it would stink to be staying in that hotel as any other guest. Maybe you're there on a family vacation, visiting, maybe you're visiting family, maybe you're there for business. I took a look online, and it looks like most of the rooms start at $164 per night and go up from there. So, it's not as if this is some cheap hotel. You're paying a pretty penny to stay here. I can't imagine having this huge crowd outside, but obviously it's not just the noise. When you take a look at the political atmosphere, when you take a look at the history of violence, especially in Minneapolis, I personally would have been scared, and I think anyone staying there would have, been in their right mind. So before this actually devolved into violence, the signs were already there. Of course, they're making noise. They're hunting down these ICE agents, so to speak. Just take a look. The hotel had a security guard, and protesters were spitting in his face. Again, this all began around 8. Most of the protesters here, it seemed like the crowd stabilized around 8:30. What's crazy, though, is that the police, surely they had been called at this point, but they didn't show up. There was no police presence here. The hotels were pretty much on their own. According to a local Fox affiliate, Minneapolis ICE shooting, 30 detained as Hilton Canopy Hotel protests escalate overnight. Now, by 8:30, it escalated even more. We had the noise protests, we had the protesters spitting in the security guard's face, but by 8:30, protesters had actually surrounded the hotel and began banging on the windows, banging on the doors. Now, you can hear the police sirens in the background, but at this point, the police weren't getting involved. In fact, they were actually pretty far back. There is a very clear timeline as to when the police came and what steps they took to try to break the crowd up. We also have the moment when the hotel was actually breached. It was breached in multiple locations. The crowd started storming in, and, what makes it disturbing for me is that people were live streaming this online. They were really happy about it, and you can tell that they didn't fear any consequences, because whenever we see protests like this, whenever we see violence or any sort of intimidation, the protesters have a tendency to cover their face with masks. They want to hide their identity, but here it was just brazen.
They're raiding the hotel. Raiding the hotel. Please retweet. If you're watching, please retweet, y'all. They busted the door open.
Now, the good news in all of this is that no one in the hotel ended up getting hurt, even though they were going door to door, banging on these doors, causing a lot of commotion and mayhem. It's a miracle that this didn't turn out to be worse. Now, my question is how did people figure out, or why did they believe ICE agents and CBP officers were staying at this hotel, as well as 2 other hotels? We do know that there seemingly have been leaks from within ICE itself. We also know that there have been apps tracking their location. The Canopy Hotel, by the way, is owned by Hilton, and there was obviously that controversy regarding one of the Hilton affiliate hotels. And so that raises the questions of how these protesters knew exactly where to go. It wasn't just the Canopy Hotel. The same thing also happened at the Depot, which is a Renaissance hotel owned by Marriott. So keep in mind, at this point, they've already breached the canopy. They're now approaching the depot. There was also a third hotel in the mix, as I mentioned, at the depot. This is where they caused the most damage, according to police estimates. It's about $6,000 worth of damage. Fortunately, no one was injured. The canopy appeared to sustain a lot less damage than the depot. At the depot, they did. Obviously, they vandalized it. They actually broke the windows. They spray painted graffiti all over the outside. Here's just a bit of that commotion. And here is another angle. You'll notice that there are no employees. They've all fled for their own safety. And my question in all of this is, where are the police? Why aren't they responding sooner? Because this could have been so much worse. We are lucky that no one got hurt. That right there obviously would be where one of the receptionists, customer service would have been, but they're all hiding. Now, like I said earlier, the noise protest began at 8. By 8:30, they were beating and storming into these hotels. According to the local news, it wasn't until 9:30 that an unlawful assembly was declared, and that's when they began issuing dispersal orders. Here is a look at that, but you can see that the crowd was not paying any attention to the police. They didn't seem intimidated, and they didn't, really follow directions. Now, we shouldn't be surprised because obviously in 2020, Minneapolis was allowed to burn. So if for these protesters, anyone who's lived there for all these years, maybe they had no reason to fear the police.
May I have your attention, please? I am Sergeant Martin, Minneapolis Police Department. This assembly is unlawful under the state of Minnesota. Minnesota law prohibits detaining public nuisance for participating in the unlawful assembly. You are hereby ordered to leave the area. This area includes appropriate canopy, hotel, the area, south or west location. You have 10 minutes to disperse.
Now, it looks like the crowd is dispersing, right? Because you see the hotel's in that upper right-hand corner. But what happened was when the police started talking, they actually started moving toward that street, and they ended up forming this wall, and there was sort of this standoff between the officers and the crowd protesting, and that crowd began growing, and it got so bad. So at one point, they actually encircled the police officers. They were intimidating them, shouting at them, spitting, throwing snowballs, ice balls, and then the police ended up leaving. Yes, they arrested a few people here at this spot, and they arrested people at the other two hotel locations. But you even hear the crowd saying, "Hey, yes, we've chased them away." What you hear in the back is someone yelling, "Whose streets? Our streets," as the crowd is quite literally, the crowd is in control in this video clip, which is just crazy to me. It looked like the police officers weren't even trying. They looked demoralized. And I guess, if you had Mayor Frey as the mayor of your city and you had the police chief that they have, no wonder they look as if they're not motivated to do their job. Now, according to a local news affiliate, the police chief, Brian O'Hara, noted that protests and marches have been largely peaceful throughout the week. Now, on Friday night, they did end up making 29 arrests when they went to the Canopy Hotel, which was the first one that was breached. They ended up sending 200 police officers, and this is what he said. "We took our time to de-escalate the situation. We issued multiple warnings declaring an unlawful assembly and ultimately then began to move in and disperse the crowd." But as you saw in that clip, it looks like the crowd, well, they were the ones in control. Now, O'Hara actually was on the ground and he was called out for seemingly abandoning the scene. But before we get to that clip, I would like to thank the members of today's Governor's Club. They are Kathleen Ide and Moon Fairy 11. These are people who give tips and super thanks to the channel. Now, take a look. This is, I believe, off the top of my mind, from Nick Sorter, and he's actually shouting out to the police chief, O'Hara, "Hey, why are you leaving? Why aren't you doing more?"
Really? Back up. Hey, Chief, why are you letting your city get like this? Why are you letting your city get walk like this? Sorry, let's go. What the fuck is going on?
You're a bunch of fucking bitches! Fuck you! Fuck you!
No, not me. It's not me. Oh shit! Let me back.
So when you see it from that vantage point, I think it's very clear that the police are the ones being chased away. You can see they didn't even try to fight back. They could have, I mean, there's so much that could have been done here, not just with the police force. They could have called in the National Guard, have riot police decked out in gear, but instead they seem to be ceding ground to these protesters. As always, though, all of this is just my analysis and commentary. This is what's going on in the world of politics from my point of view, and I would love to hear from you. So what do you think? Do you think the police was just leaving for their own safety? Do you think that them leaving was them trying to de-escalate the situation? Or do you think that they were too soft on these protesters? Should more have been done to stop this and stop it earlier? To me, you know, if these protesters, it's one thing to peacefully protest, right? But if you are making noise at an unreasonable hour, if you are storming hotels with the mission to quote unquote hunt ICE agents, I think here there is very significant probable cause and a lot of fear that the police should have as far as the safety for ICE agents, as well as people who are innocently in, well, the ICE agents are also innocently in these hotels, but you know what I mean? People who didn't ask to be there in the first place, like the people working the hotel, people there on vacation, on business. No one asked to be targeted. And of course, to be very clear, ICE agents didn't ask for this either. But the point I'm trying to say here is there are so many potential victims of this crowd. It just makes you wonder why the police didn't step in. Why, like, even if you couldn't control the crowd, wouldn't you want to create a human barricade around the hotel just for the safety of everyone inside? It just doesn't make sense to me. If you haven't already, please be sure to leave me a thumbs up. I know it's a simple thing to ask for, but it really does help me reach more viewers like you in the algorithm. Be sure to smash that subscribe button and to check out one of these videos.